Hello Atticus, hello Eleanor. It's your Auntie Pete here. How are you? I'm glad you've come. Do you know why? Because your mum, Auntie Kitty, has asked us to read a story for you. Now, the first thing we need to do before we read the story is we've got to find the book. It's a book called Mr. Bump. I don't know if you've read that before, but I think I know who's got the book. I think your cousin Emily has got the book, so we're going to go and find her. Ah, there you are again. Now, we're looking for Emily. I can't see her, so I need you to help me find her. Can you see Emily? What's that? There? No, I think you're wrong there. Can you see her? Atticus, can you see her? What? No, I've looked there. She's not there. I'm sorry, but she's not there. Eleanor, you think you can see her? I'm sure you're wrong. I'm sure I've looked and Atticus looked. Where is she? No, sorry. Not Emily. We're going to go and see if Rosie's got it now. Oh, there you are. Now, there's another book called Mr. Messy, which your mother or your dad may have read you. I wonder if this room reminds you of that book. We're in Emily and Rosie's room and we're looking for Rosie. I wonder, can you see Rosie? What's that? What did you say, Atticus? No, there's nobody there. Can you see Rosie? Eleanor, can you see Rosie? What's that? No, there's nobody there. What about nobody here? Well, looks like we can't find Emily and we can't find Rosie, so let's go and find Chris. So, we can't find Emily, we can't find Rosie, but you can always rely on Chris. Here's Chris. Chris, have you got the book?
No.
No, he hasn't got it. What's that you say, Eleanor? Ask him again. Chris, have you got the book?
I don't have it, Pete.
He hasn't got it. Atticus? Sorry, what are you trying to say to me, Atticus? Oh. Let's ask him again, shall we? Chris, have you got the book?
Nope.
No, I think you guys are wrong. I don't think he's got it. Now, let's go and ask Auntie Barbara. Now, we've come in here to the place where you'll always find Auntie Barbara, up to her elbows in the sink. I wonder if she's got the book. What's that you say, Eleanor? Ask her. Okay, let's ask Auntie Barbara. Have you got the book?
No, I haven't got the book.
No, she said she hasn't got it. Yes, Atticus? Well, what did you say, Atticus? Okay, I'll ask again, but I think you're wrong. Have you got the book?
No, I haven't got the book.
You see?
Just me doing the dishes.
Yeah. Keep working. Well, I think there's only one other place we can go. I wonder if you can work out where that is. Well, I have some good news and I have some bad news. And the good news is that I found out who's got the book, and the bad news is that they're reading it. So I think we'll have to ask them very nicely if they're going to let us borrow the book. Stumpy, can we borrow the book? What's that? You're reading it? Or you finished? Because we're going to borrow it for Atticus and Eleanor, yeah? So there we go. Shall we see what's inside? Ah, right. So we've got the book, and I've got myself a lovely cup of coffee. So I want you to ask your mum or your dad for an orange juice and a biscuit, and sit down and make yourselves comfortable, and we'll get going. Right. Let's see. This is the sad story of Mr. Bump. The trouble was that Mr. Bump just could not help having little accidents. If there was something for Mr. Bump to bump into, he'd bump into it all right. For instance, if you were to see Mr. Bump out walking down the street in your town, And if there happened to be something to bump into down that street, then you know what would happen, don't you? Can you see what's going to happen here? Can you see what's going to happen here? Yes. Bump. Mr. Bump was just the same at home. He lived in an extremely nice home, but even there he couldn't help having those little accidents. You see Mr. Bump's nice house? For instance, one morning when Mr. Bump went outside his house, he noticed that the chimney pot had come loose in a storm the night before. I must fix that before it falls off, thought Mr. Bump to himself, and he hurried to his garden shed to fetch a ladder. It was a very long ladder. Can you think what's going to happen next? Mr. Bump walked up the garden path with the ladder on his shoulder. He turned the corner of the garden path. Crash went the living room window. Oh dear, thought Mr. Bump, and he turned to see what had happened. Crash went the kitchen window behind him. Oh dear, thought Mr. Bump again, and he rested the ladder against the wall of the house so that he could climb up onto the roof to mend the chimney pot. Crash went the bedroom window. Can you see the broken windows here? Have you ever broken any windows? I thought not. So, you can see how Mr. Bump had his little accidents. Mr. Bump had had many jobs, but somehow they never seemed to last very long. As soon as anything got lost or broken or splintered or chipped or snapped or cracked or torn or burst or wrenched or crunched or split or slit, Mr. Bump got the blame. For instance, when Mr. Bump worked on a farm, he tripped over the farm dog and spilt the milk which he was carrying for the farmer's wife, and which the farm cat lapped up. Can you see the farm cat? And can you see the milk that he spilled? For instance, when Mr. Bump was a postman, he got his hands stuck in a pillar box, and they had to fetch the fire brigade to come and set him free. For instance, when Mr. Bump was a bus conductor, he fell off the bus and couldn't catch it up again, and all the passengers travelled without having to pay. For instance, when Mr. Bump was a carpenter, he found that when he was hammering nails, he hammered his thumb most of the time and the nail hardly at all. Can you see what he's done with his thumb and with the nail? In order to recover from this series of rather unfortunate happenings, Mr. Bump decided to take a holiday. There he could think about what sort of job he could do where he wouldn't be such a nuisance to everybody. So he set off to the station to catch a train to the seaside. While Mr. Bump was on holiday, several things happened. I wonder if you can see by looking at that picture what's going to happen to Mr. Bump. For instance, he fell off a boat into the sea, and the lifeboat had to come and rescue him. For instance, one day when he was quietly walking along the beach minding his own business, he got his foot stuck in a bucket, and as he couldn't get it off, he had to walk around with it on his foot for hours. Can you imagine walking around with a bucket on your foot for hours? For instance, another time, he was walking along the beach when he walked straight into a large hole that somebody had dug, and he had to stay there all night because he couldn't climb out on his own. However, despite all these little accidents, Mr. Bump enjoyed his holiday, and while he was there he had a splendid idea about what sort of job he could do. It was quite the best idea Mr. Bump had ever had, an absolutely splendid idea. Now I wonder what Mr. Bump's idea is. Can you think? There's a page here. No. And now Mr. Bump works happily for Mr. Barley the farmer. Mr. Barley has a rather large apple orchard on his farm, and that's where Mr. Bump works. Mr. Bump's job is picking apples, but he doesn't use a ladder to climb up the tree to pick the apples like other apple pickers. Oh no, Mr. Bump has a much better way of picking apples than that. He just walks about. And before long, Mr. Bump, being Mr. Bump, walks into a tree. Can you see him walking around the apple trees? Can you see the apples? Bump. And down falls an apple and Mr. Bump catches it. This makes the job of apple picking much easier. And Mr. Bump is very pleased about his new job. And Mr. Barley is very pleased about his new apple picker. So you see, the story of Mr. Bump isn't such a sad story after all. And if you ever bump yourself, you know what to do, don't you? Go and eat an apple picked by Mr. Bump, and then you won't feel your bump at all. You'll remember that the next time you have a bump, won't you? Good. Well, that was an interesting story, wasn't it? I wonder if you've ever bumped yourselves. Have you, Eleanor? You have. Have you, Atticus? Oh, that sounds nasty. Now, that's the end of that book. But you know what? I wonder if we could persuade some other people to read a story for you. Would you like another story? So I can't hear you. Say that a bit louder. I still can't hear you. A bit louder. Ah, you would like another story. Don't tell anyone, but there's one thing you need when you're reading a story. I wonder if you can work out what it is. Shh! Damn, where's the chocolate gone? Someone's eaten it.
Yeah, exactly.
There was a piece of chocolate in there. Oh, no, scrap that.